The white smoke billowed and a collective gasp swept over St. Peter's Square. You could see disbelief on every face as they looked at the chimney above the Sistine Chapel. It was a big moment that would change Catholic history forever. A Filipino Pope? That was something no one ever expected. But on that day, it became real. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, known as the Francis of Asia, had taken the throne of Peter. The world was watching, captivated. News spread like wildfire, electrifying the faithful and catching the attention of the curious. For the Catholic Church, which has been around for 2,000 years, this election was a huge deal. It marked a break from the old ways and a bold step into something new. Hope was thick in the air. Here was a guy known for his humility, compassion, and dedication to helping the poor and marginalized. Could he be the bridge builder and healer that the church needed? Only time would tell. But one thing was clear: the papacy and the world would never be the same. This wasn't just a change in leadership, it was the start of a new era. Luis Antonio Tagle's journey to becoming Pope was as surprising as it was inspiring. His story is all about faith, resilience, and a commitment to serving others. Born in 1957, he grew up in a devout Catholic family in the Philippines, a place rich in faith and tradition that really shaped his spiritual growth. His parents, a bank teller and a water company employee, taught him to have a deep faith and a strong sense of social justice. They instilled values like hard work, humility, and compassion in him, which became the foundation of his life. From a young age, Tagle showed off his sharp mind and kind heart. He was always ready to help those in need, traits that would define his future work. He did great in school, eventually getting a doctorate in theology from the Catholic University of America. His academic success showed just how dedicated and eager he was to learn. He climbed the ranks in the church in the Philippines, serving as a parish priest, a bishop, and eventually the Archbishop of Manila. In each role, he showed his unwavering commitment to his faith and his community. In Manila, Tagle really came into his own. The bustling city, full of vibrant culture and diverse people, became the setting for his most impactful work. He took on the role of a shepherd to the poor and marginalized, and his empathy and understanding of their struggles made him a beloved figure among those who were less fortunate. He walked alongside them, listened to their stories, and amplified their voices. His presence brought hope and comfort to many who felt ignored by society. He wasn't afraid to challenge the powerful, speaking out against corruption and injustice. His fearless advocacy for the oppressed earned him both admiration and opposition, but his warmth and infectious laughter endeared him to many. He wasn't just a leader, he was a friend and confidant to a lot of people. He became known as the Cardinal of the Poor, a champion for those who felt forgotten. His tireless efforts to uplift the downtrodden really struck a chord with those he served, and his reputation as a man of the people spread far beyond his homeland. Rome took notice. His influence reached the global stage, where his voice became a beacon of hope and justice. In 2012, Pope Benedict XVI elevated him to the College of Cardinals. This wasn't just a personal honor, it was a testament to all his hard work and dedication to his faith. It was a sign of things to come. The world was starting to recognize a leader whose impact would cross borders and touch countless lives. We were witnessing the rise of a remarkable figure, a man destined for greatness. His journey from Manila to Rome shows just how powerful faith, compassion, and a commitment to serving others can be. The Vatican was buzzing with all sorts of ideas and opinions in the lead-up to Tagle's election. The ancient walls of the Holy See were filled with lively debates as the Church tried to figure out its place in a world that was changing fast. You could really feel the tension, which was just a reflection of what was happening in society overall. Traditionalists, holding on to their time-honored beliefs, were clashing with reformers who were eager to bring the Church into the 21st century. These reformers wanted to tackle modern issues like social justice and the role of women in the Church, pushing for changes that many thought were way overdue. This divide wasn't just about theology, it was also cultural. The papacy of Pope Francis I had kicked off a new era of openness and conversation, but there were still deep splits. While a lot of people praised his efforts to promote inclusivity and compassion, Others worried that the church was drifting too far from its foundational teachings. The real challenge was finding a way to honor tradition while also welcoming necessary changes. The Catholic Church was at a crossroads, and the decisions made during this time would impact its future for years to come. Would it stick to its ancient customs, or would it adapt to meet the needs of a modern, diverse congregation? The stakes were incredibly high, and everyone was watching closely. Scandals, both financial and sexual, had really hurt the church's reputation. These crises had shaken people's trust and left many questioning the church's moral authority. The faithful were feeling disillusioned, and the leadership knew that simply talking about restoring credibility wouldn't cut it. They needed real actions and a strong commitment to change and accountability. Secularism was on the rise, especially in the West, and the church was facing the challenge of reaching out to people who were becoming more indifferent or even hostile toward religious institutions. You could see this in the empty pews and the growing number of folks who identified as spiritual but not religious. The church had to find fresh ways to connect with these people and show them that it still had something valuable to offer. What the church really needed was a leader who could steer through these choppy waters, heal past wounds, and set a course for the future. Cardinal Tagle seemed like a beacon of hope, someone who could bridge the gap between tradition and progress. His deep empathy and understanding of marginalized communities made him a strong candidate for those looking for a more inclusive and compassionate church. The College of Cardinals, the group responsible for electing the Pope, was deeply divided. Each faction felt strongly about their vision for the church's future. The conclave wasn't just a political event, it was a spiritual one too, with each cardinal seeking divine guidance in their choices. The outcome was anyone's guess, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. Conservatives wanted to return to traditional values and take a hard stance against what they saw as moral relativism. They believed the church's strength came from sticking to its doctrines, arguing that any deviation would only weaken its authority. For them, the solution to the church's challenges lay in reaffirming its timeless teachings. On the flip side, progressives inspired by Pope Francis were hoping for a more inclusive church, one that welcomed the marginalized and tackled issues like poverty, inequality, and climate change. They saw the church's mission as being a beacon of hope and justice in a world filled with suffering and injustice. Their vision was for a church that wasn't just about guarding tradition, but also a dynamic force for good in the world. The conclave of 2025 was cloaked in secrecy, and the outcome was far from guaranteed. The world watched as the cardinals gathered behind closed doors, each vote bringing them closer to deciding the church's future. The air was buzzing with excitement as everyone held their breath, hoping for a leader who could steer them through tough times. The church's future felt like it was hanging in the balance. The choices made in those sacred halls would echo far beyond the Vatican and impacting millions around the world. Everyone was waiting, feeling hopeful yet a bit on edge, eager for a glimpse of what Cardinal Tagle had in mind for the church. To really get his vision, we need to look back at his early days. Luis Antonio Togo, better known as Cardinal Tagle, was born in Manila, Philippines in 1957. He grew up in a simple household where his parents taught him the importance of empathy and service, values that shaped his entire life. From a young age, Tagle felt drawn to the church, not just as a place to worship, but as a community where people could support each other. His early experiences in the church gave him a strong sense of belonging and purpose. His journey to becoming a priest kicked off at the San Jose Seminary in Quezon City, where he earned a reputation for being both smart and kind. It was here that he discovered the writings of liberation theologians who emphasized social justice and caring for the poor, ideas that really struck a chord with him. These teachings became central to his ministry. Tagle's early days as a priest in Imus were especially impactful. He worked closely with struggling communities, witnessing their challenges and resilience firsthand. These experiences reinforced his belief that the church should serve the marginalized and be a voice for those who often go unheard. He didn't just want to provide help, he aimed to empower people to stand up for their rights and dignity. His compassion and dedication didn't go unnoticed. In 2001, he became the Bishop of Amos, and by 2011, he was the Archbishop of Manila. Each step of his journey showed his growing commitment to social justice and his emerging leadership skills. His sermons and writings during this time often called for the Church to tackle societal issues like poverty and human rights head-on. Tagle's humility and approachability made him popular with many. He was always ready to listen, engage in meaningful conversations, and bring comfort to grieving families or speak at international events. His message was clear. The Church should be a force for good, grounded in compassion and justice. When Pope Benedict XVI appointed him as a cardinal in 2012, it was a sign of his increasing influence within the global Church and a nod to his hard work and commitment to the gospel. As a cardinal, Tagle continued to be a champion for the poor and marginalized, becoming a leading voice for social justice in the Vatican. Understanding his background is key to appreciating his vision for the future. His life story really shows the power of empathy, humility, and faith, inspiring hope and providing a blueprint for a church that honors tradition while embracing love and justice. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, History Hub, for more cool stories and insights. Even before he became a cardinal, Tagle was a bright light for many in the Church. His charisma and genuine compassion connected with people from all walks of life. He was seen as a leader who could bridge the gap between tradition and modern times, offering fresh perspectives on age-old beliefs. His vision was all about radical compassion, focusing on the poor and marginalized. He believed the Church's true mission was to help those in need, be a voice for the voiceless, and bring hope to those feeling hopeless. This wasn't just talk for him, it was practical and deeply rooted in his own experiences with underprivileged communities. He viewed the Church not as a fortress, but as a field hospital, ready to heal the wounds of a hurting world. This idea perfectly captured his belief that the Church should be a place of healing and refuge, where people could find comfort and support during tough times. His visits to hospitals, disaster-stricken areas, and his comforting presence for the sick and suffering showed just how much he cared. He was a strong advocate for social justice, speaking out against economic inequality and challenging the systems that keep people trapped in poverty. His speeches often pointed out the deeper issues that maintain poverty cycles and called for a fairer distribution of resources. He really believed that the Church had a responsibility to stand up against injustice and push for a fairer society. He wasn't afraid to call out corruption, whether it was happening in the Church or in the wider world. He got that corruption breaks down trust and weakens the very fabric of society. His message was straightforward: no tolerance for corruption, whether in government or within the Church's own walls. People recognized and respected his efforts to push for transparency and accountability. He also cared deeply about the environment, understanding how urgent the climate crisis is. For him, taking care of the planet was a moral duty, and he thought the Church should be leading the way in promoting sustainable practices. His involvement in environmental rallies and talks about climate change really showed how committed he was to this cause. He often emphasized how everything is connected and that humanity has a responsibility to protect and preserve the earth for future generations. His vision didn't stop at just environmental issues. He was also well-versed in Church teachings and respected tradition. But he knew the Church needed to tackle modern issues and be open to conversations. He thought theology shouldn't stay stuck in the past, but should evolve with new insights while still respecting core beliefs. He was all about having discussions, especially on topics like divorce, contraception, and homosexuality. He believed the Church should hear out the experiences and struggles of its members and provide compassionate support. His approach was all about empathy and inclusivity. He wanted to find common ground and create a community where everyone felt welcome, no matter their sexual orientation or marital status. He often talked about the importance of building an inclusive and loving community where everyone felt valued. His actions reflected his belief that the Church should be a home for all, a place where people could find love, support, and understanding. He wasn't looking for a revolution. He believed in gradual change, building on what was already there while looking ahead. His vision was about continuity and growth, keeping true to core values while being open to new ideas. He wanted to build bridges, not walls, and encourage discussions instead of creating divisions. He thought the church should lead the way in promoting peace and understanding among different faiths and cultures. His work in interfaith dialogue and reconciliation aimed to create a more united and harmonious world. He felt that the church, while staying true to its core values, needed to adapt to the realities of the 21st century. He embraced modern technology as a way to reach more people and share the church's message. His talks about contemporary issues showed he was ready to engage with the challenges and opportunities of today. His election as Pope was seen as a turning point, a chance for the church to regain its moral authority and be a real force for good in the world. His leadership was viewed as a beacon of hope, signaling that the church was ready to embrace change and work towards a more just, compassionate, and inclusive future.